They were like, everything is fine with you. And I was like, I just need to know what is going on. Like, I'm tired of people telling me I'm okay when I'm not.
What did the doctor say? Did they give you any kind of concrete answers?
Yeah, so that was the day when, and after that was more so processing that this is the answer that I've been waiting for, and also the anger. I think that's a piece that's been affecting my mental health the most, to be honest.
So in terms of next steps, it seems like things are starting to get a little bit better, which is great. I know you were able to identify the trigger, which tends to be the hardest part because we don't know what's going on.
Okay. So this is a story of how I ended up in the hospital, then moved in and out of different places for a month or so, and finally decided to move back to Hong Kong, the place I grew up in and I hadn't visited in the past 8 years. It was one of the worst things that I have ever experienced in my life, and I've experienced quite a few things. Today is June 3rd, which means today is exactly 3 months from my last hospital visit. I didn't go to the hospital once. I went technically 3 times. The first time I went to urgent care, second time I went to the ER, and almost sat beside a guy who had a pink eye and was smiling at me while showing me a CCTV screen of a hallway that is not the hospital. Of course, I ended up having my first panic attack a few hours after waiting there. I went to the hospital, to the ER again a few days later. I was again feeling like a lot of fatigue. And this fatigue is indescribable. It's like I couldn't keep my eyes open no matter how much sleep I get. And I felt like a walking zombie. That's how I described it to my friends. All day, every day, that was how I felt. And yeah, I was bawling my eyes out once I got there. I couldn't stand on my own 2 feet without leaning on the counter, so they ended up giving me a wheelchair. It was a lot. You know that feeling when things just happen one after another that are just so ridiculous, you just can't take it seriously anymore. I just started taking things almost as a joke. And that made the time pass by a bit faster. I got my blood tested, my vitals checked, in between, of course, waited for hours again. And finally, this time I was able to see a doctor. And at first, the doctor was telling me the same thing that all the other doctors have been telling me, which is that they don't really know what's happening. Finally, the doctor asked me what medications I'm taking. And I told him I'm taking Zolpidem for my sleep. And his face changed. I was like, oh, so it's my medication. He was basically trying to say that I felt so fatigued because my body still felt like I was in sleep mode throughout the day, which wasn't supposed to happen. At first, of course, I felt relief that I have an answer, because for the whole week, I didn't know what was happening, and at some point, I just kept wishing that I would get some sort of answer. The second feeling that rushed over me was anger. I was so angry at my roommates, who were so loud at night that I couldn't sleep, and they were why I went on sleeping medication. When I told them or asked them very politely to be quiet, the last response I got from them was, I should just get earphones. I already had earphones. And actually, when I finally asked them one last time to be quiet, and I told them I needed sleep because I just went to the hospital, they were high off their heads, and they just were staring at me and were like, okay. And while I was seeing myself out, we started arguing for the first time. I told them the real reason why I'm leaving, why I had booked an Airbnb for a week. That was more expensive than 1 month of rent at the house. And they're like, we didn't know that you went to the hospital. You should have told us. Another person that I got really frustrated with was my classmate. Well, you might be wondering, how did my classmate possibly got involved in this situation. Well, she was the person who rented me the place. It was a sublet, she wanted to move out, and she had told me she's moving out because she can't afford the rent there.
An okay kind of like size type thing, like
yeah. I actually asked her, is that at all because of her roommates? And she said no, verbatim. Said no, it's not. Why she previously said it was affecting her mental health was only because of other reasons, not her roommates. Oh my god. I'm so annoyed. As I was saying, eventually I got the feeling she had lied to me. I still wasn't sure. Finally, one of the roommates had told me that last semester, the loud roommates were still loud. They have always had this lifestyle and they had always had an issue with people like me, the subletters who just move in for a couple months. But this whole time, she continues to tell me that last semester when she was at the place, it was quiet, therefore they must have changed their lifestyle. So suddenly it felt like my world turned upside down. Finally, someone was validating how I felt. And then so many things happened after that. It didn't just stop there. My classmate came up to me and she just kept yelling at me saying I should pay her rent. And she just kept saying you're supposed to pay the rent. I still owe her. This was during a time when I finally had moved out. I wasn't living there during April. And I didn't want to pay the rent for it. And I felt like she interfered with my reasonable enjoyment when it was completely avoidable. And I already knew that she had no remorse. But that was more confirmed today. And there was a week of her just constantly emailing me, messaging me on WhatsApp, iMessage, telling me that I owe her rent. But I talked to a couple lawyers and eventually found out that I do owe her rent. I just need a break from, I don't know, life. And eventually I did the thing. I just had my appointment and I do have GAD. I got diagnosed. Before it was just anxious traits, but the past few months it's made it a disorder. I spent so much more the past. And now to go back to China, and main reason isn't even to have a vacation, it's just to save on rent and groceries.
因為出咗嚟嘅啲嘢，我行埋去，我就揾到你啦。係。